Anin, bonjour. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're joining us. Welcome to our channel, The Veterans View, where I myself, First Nations veteran, discusses political topics in our communities and maybe be a bit of a critic, I guess, and pass some information from my eyes, and my point of view. Um, I haven't made a video in a number of years. I believe maybe 3 years, maybe, since the last time I made a video. Um, but during the time I've been away, I received countless emails from people encouraging and sharing their opinions as well, and a lot of positive feedback. Even within the comments, I didn't really see too much anger or whatever. I'm just kind of I guess privileged in this day and age to be able to share my point of view and opinion and um, in this modern world, because there's a lot of places that their people don't have the ability to do that. So welcome. Today I'm going to discuss some things going on in our areas that I think everybody should be aware of. Mind you, I got some papers and notes here I'll be reading off of. But I want to discuss, we just recently went over the RHTLF, the whole fiasco of what happened there. To sum it up, I guess, they asked the people what they wanted. They said one thing. The Indian agents in their communities told the people basically what they would get. It's kind of a false sense of, hey, we want your opinion and ideas, what you want, listen, and then dump all that information and say, too bad, we've already decided. And it's very hurtful, and I don't see any better in our communities. It doesn't look like they're sitting on millions of dollars, or whatever, anything that's going on. And back to the lawyer fees from that. This lawyer group that represented supposedly all of us strong-armed some of our leadership in forcing them to pay this amount in form of signing BCRs, papers, whatever, in order to receive the money. And in return, a lot of our communities received that same strong-arm tactic. Sign this BCR that we made, and you guys sign and say you guys did it. Something along those lines. And the lawyers got paid a ridiculous amount of money. Turn around, a couple reserves, I want to say chimigwech to their communities and their leadership to actually slap in the hand that feeds us a little and fighting that fight. But they challenged the lawyers' fees, and the court rulings decided that they obviously took too much and they were supposed to give some back, or give a big chunk of it back. So it was a little, I guess you could say, alarming. And then to top it all off, they hired those exact same lawyers to continue working on my next discussion, the RHW, which is a form of treaty level governance. It's they're trying to, I guess, to sum it up, create a treaty level governance above the communities. So we'd have our communities, chief and councils, they handle local business, but who really represents us to the provincial and federal government would be this RHW, the political body and the treaty level governance that they're trying to create. It goes back to the lawyer fees. I believe that there's 5 communities that haven't signed the BCR that come from the RHW, so it's not even created in our communities. The RHW created this BCR, have their chief and council sign this paper in order to get your lawyers' monies. We all know how the RHTLF handled their business. It's the exact same play card to get the lawyers' fees. And in return, they're trying to create this treaty level government. So hopefully the other communities, minus the 5 that haven't signed the BCR, really read what you signed. You know, it's important. It's not about money. It's reading their play card in this political realm of things. You know, basically they're creating another level of governance before our communities, and we don't need more government. I can tell you that. We don't need more government for the amount of people that we have. You know, 30,000 people. You know, we don't need all these government bodies to manage us. I think we're more than capable ourselves in deciding in our communities what's right for that. So some of the key concerns I have about this treaty level governance is, who gave the RHW authority to do this? You know, you question, like, who gave them the authority to do this? You know, number 2, were any community members directly consulted? Probably not. I wasn't. Was there even a referendum or a ratification vote? You know, referendum is a big word in politics. You know, because you have a referendum, it's a vote for the people, and it's specific, yes or no. And if the majority wins, that referendum has legal backing. So you wonder why our elected Indian agents don't consult the people, because throughout the history, the majority says one thing, and they go and do the other. Sorry, I got bit by a bug. They do another, you know. So, and did we, the people, agree to transfer any authority to a treaty level body? No, I didn't. I really believe that, you know, if this process goes through and they're successful, they're gonna extremely distance themselves from the people like us. You know, local decisions affecting our local communities and the 21 communities will be affected, because there's another body of government that has direct ear to the province and feds. You know, most of these chiefs that are in this organization, have their communities under their leadership gotten any better? Probably not. You know, I know their pockets are fuller. You know, I would love all those chiefs of the RHW, show your income and taxes prior to you becoming an Indian agent in your communities, and show us your income statements now, or your bank statements. I would love to see that, and I'm sure a lot of other people would too. It would probably be enlightening for a lot of us, you know, to see the amount of money some of these great Indian agents of the federal government are making in the name of leadership for us. That's a whole nother discussion, and, you know, I'll stop there. So the RHW will also have the ability to interpret the treaty. So I wrote this down. It says, if the RHW becomes the primary interpreter of the Robinson-Huron Treaty, who ensures their interpretation reflects the views of all treaty beneficiaries? That's us. So if they couldn't handle the RHTLF and they dropped that ball and not giving what the people wanted, on a bigger scale, do you think they're gonna do right for us, the people, and interpret these treaties to benefit the people, not a select few? You know, different First Nations and families may have different understandings of treaty promises. Exactly. There's a history that goes on of interpretations of the treaty, and we can't just give it to a political organization, to do that. It would be wrong. Another issue and concern about this treaty level governance is resource development. Resource development can be involved in billions, maybe even trillions of dollars. Who decides whether the mine, forest, transmission line, or energy projects proceed? They would, not the individual communities. How would the benefits be shared? Again, they get to decide. And the track record shows they haven't made some very good decisions. And what will happen when the treaty people disagree with this treaty level government? It's concerning, because they'll be in charge of talking to they'll become consultants more or less to discuss on what they do with not our land, but this great land that we have, that we've been gifted to be on. Number 5, another concern is they get put in charge of land and water protection. Protection is important, but who determines what protection looks like? Again, we're going to leave it in charge, and not our communities. At community level, it's going to be a treaty level government. So we're kind of the lowest tier of people if they get their wish and all this, but to let them decide on land and water protection. Some of our communities don't even have clean drinking water, and they want to be in charge of it. No, they shouldn't be in charge of that either. They shouldn't be in charge of a lot of things, but this is what they're trying to accomplish. So, treaty annuities, they now become the sole negotiator, to be in charge of any other treaties that come. They'll say that we can handle it. We did it before. We did a good job. We want to do more. So it's a little bit disheartening on what's happening, because it's going so fast. There's only 5 communities that didn't sign that BCR in order to push this through. I don't know if that's enough to stop this ball rolling. Maybe this information could be shared around, and you can ask your chief and councils what the hell is going on, some questions that they should know what they signed, if maybe I'm making this up, maybe I'm not, but this is some stuff I read and researched, and I wanted to share, and another concern, would be accountability. Can the members of the 21 remove any of these guys? Are there any public meetings for all 21 to attend? Where can they fill that? Not too many places. Are financial statements going to be easily available? We all know that's a no-go. No-go, Nijis. We can't do that. And then who audits this organization? Is it going to be the same federal organization that audits our communities, that always say everything's really good? I highly doubt that. Number 8, this is going to create another level of government. I'm one of those people, less government, stay out of my business, let me go on my way, take care of the roads, healthcare, our kids' schooling, stay out of why are you trying to grasp more than you can handle? It's too much government, And then what powers will they have over the 21? There's all this paperwork and hidden stuff that we won't find out till the dying hour, when it's already too late, when they leak the information or some pieces come out here and there, So I wrote a little something in closing, I guess. I'll leave it at that. It's my first video back in a while, but I'll probably sleep a little better, knowing this is off and out there and uncut, just kind of me saying my view and opinions, but I'll read what I wrote. As a veteran, I served Canada believing leadership should be accountable to the people. Whenever a new governing body is created, the first question should be, who authorized it, who does it answer to, and how can the people remove it if they disagree? Those questions deserve clear answers. Be authority over treaty interpretation, resource development, land, water, and annuities is centralized. So I have some questions to you. Fill out in the comments, after you subscribe if you want. Here's some questions to the audience, because most of you are in the 21. So some questions for you are, is the RHT advisory or governing? Who elected them? Can they make decisions on behalf of any of the 21 community members, 21 First Nation community members? Can any community withdraw? What authority has actually been delegated to the RHW? Where are the signed agreements to this? Have members voted on these agreements? No. Does treaty level governance strengthen or weaken local self-determination? So that's my little rant or discussion on RHW, treaty level governance. Share this video. I appreciate your time. Chimigwech. Stay vigilant, everybody. Enjoy the summer. Get out there at your families. We got a big fight ahead of us. Bamapi Guamin.